I saw a lot of hands that many of you have done video chats. Many of you have done video chats. How many have done them through Google Plus Hangouts? No. Okay, one person. I'm going to concentrate in that area because that is the up-and-coming, easiest way that's going to be to do video chat that will help you. Now, I can't talk about any of this without also talking about social media. How many people have actually heard of the law of diffusion? A few people. What it talks about is the product. If you look at the blue line, that's probably product development, where it goes through a phase, hits a tipping point, and then it starts dropping. Over on the left is something called innovators, and that's like your Steve Jobs that comes out with all the i products. And then you have the laggards, are those people that still only use corded phones. This is important because who you're interviewing with depends on which category they fit in. Now the yellow line talks about things that drastically change culture. So if you're talking about the introduction of the telephone, that was a major disruption, and it's here to stay. So is the internet, so is social media. And now you talk about social media used by businesses, which is usually the audience that I speak to. They're now still in the early majority in 2011. And then the use video is really still in the early adoption phase. 2012, things started moving, but then there was this thing called Hangouts, which is on Google. And keep in mind who owns search. That is the thing, that is why I say that video chat. I've used Skype, I've used GoToMeetings, GoToWebinars. To me, Google Plus is going to knock them out of the park. And you're going to start seeing more and more people in this year starting to use it. The fact that you pick it up means you are going to be ahead of the curve and makes you more marketable than if you start saying, yes, Skype, or GoToMeeting, understanding Google Plus and the power of Google Plus. But of course, using any social media, promotion is your responsibility. You are the one that has to start building a digital footprint large enough to be found. Because you never know what you put up there, whether it's on Twitter. How many people use Twitter? How many people use Facebook? How many people use LinkedIn? I'm so happy all the hands went up on that. LinkedIn, I was basically a user of LinkedIn from day one. And it's amazing how much it has actually evolved over the, gosh, was it a decade now that they've been out there? Or almost that way. Facebook is not as long. Facebook I'm not as big a fan of unless you are a small business, a small retail shop. So it's great for me keeping in touch with my nieces and nephews. But it's still your responsibility. And not having a digital strategy for yourself or marketing yourself, building it and not using it is a no-win strategy. It's not the return on investment, because then you can ask the question, what was the investment of your mother in you? Can you measure that? But your measurement of your involvement is what really counts. And I stole that line from Gary Vaynerchuk, in case anybody's heard of him. So I want to know, how's your Google juice? What you're introduced to is my little girl, Scarlett. She's definitely a model in most of my presentations. And she has a choice of different juices, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, or whatever. She's on there. But what it is, that's interesting, is how many people will Google my name, either as Patricia or as Pat. Look at 7 pages of stuff. How much is people finding about you when they Google you? Have something set up so that you can search maybe once a month to see how you are ranking, especially if you have a common name. Now, I gave up my maiden name because it was Pat Smith. That was just way too much competition. So I actually went with my married name decades ago. It's very important for you to take advantage and think of the strategy of all the different platforms that you have. The most important one now I'm going to talk to you about is video. A typical video when you're taking, and I'm not sure what you're filming this out, could be at 60 frames a second. So figure out what a minute is worth if all those are pictures. Perfect example that I usually talk about is Will It Blend. Has anybody heard of Will It Blend? Will It Blend was a guy that came out with a blender. He had to compete with Hamilton Beach, GE, all the others, had no idea. So he made a YouTube video, and he used the same techniques that I'm going to talk about with you. He did something unexpected, he did something funny, he did something different, and his sales went through the roof. Video is something to be taken seriously. I don't care what you think you look like, because everybody has the exact same feeling. Professional speakers and everyone else absolutely hate themselves on camera. So you're not alone. And it's not so much for increasing sales as for you, is that once they see you on video, you become the trusted advisor. It is the quickest way of building Google juice and to earn trust for potential employers. My other favorite example is how many people have heard of Snowball the Dancing Cockatoo. It was on 60 Minutes, it was on all these other... Being in the parent community as much as I have been, it went around like wildflowers. There was this guy that had a cockatoo, and anyone who knows anything about cockatoos, they're billfold birds. They want to be with you, they don't want to leave you, and when you leave, they start screeching. He was unemployed and had to take another job out of town. Couldn't be home for the bird. So he decided to give the bird to this little known charity called Bird Lovers Only. When he dropped the cockatoo off, said, look, he's going to start screeching, but just put on this CD and he'll calm down. And it was the Backstreet Boys. 45 minutes after being dropped off, Snowball went nuts, put the CD on, and started dancing to the beat. That's pretty unusual. So of course, she took her crummy flip camera in horrible, horrible lighting, took a video of it, and shared it with other sanctuaries, who shared it with all their friends, who shared it with their friends, who shared it with their friends. And I think the last time I looked at this was at 3 million views. They have a little donate button underneath. They said the money started coming in like water. Now, imagine if everybody just donated $1. And they had over 3 million views. Now, not everybody's going to donate, but not everybody's going to donate just $1. That is the power of video. And that is also the power that you could actually create your own little video resume, which talks about your character, talks about how you are different, that talks about how you can be of value to your client. You can pre-make this and have it on YouTube so it can be found. Video conferencing is the next step, where you're not going to be able to prepare, but if you know how to already talk on camera, you'll be fine in your video chat. To show you that it's not all for the crazy parrot people like myself, what it is about is this is a company that is a big accounting firm in New York City. And they created a recruitment video. They wanted to get the kind of people that would enjoy doing accounting, but also have fun doing it. And they created a video that went viral that was a flash mob. If you read the comments underneath, there are several comments out there that say, hey, you look like a cool company to work for, how do I apply? Now, think of the reverse. If you had a cool video, how many companies would say, would you like a job here? That's the possibility of videos. It's no longer who you know, it's who knows you and what they say about you. Who's heard of Jeffrey Gitomer? Jeffrey Gitomer is a guru sales trainer, and this is actually his quote. And what he also has, which is something to keep in mind when you're creating these videos or if you're doing video conferencing, is people don't like to be sold, but they love to buy. You're not on your video just saying how great you are. You want to create an environment where they want to buy you. And there's a skill and a practice that you can do to get that. The other important thing, and this is why video is so important, because you get to see the person, you get to connect with the person, especially on video conferencing. His other famous quote is, both things being equal, people will buy from your friends. Things not quite so equal, people will still buy from your friends. So use video to help build a relationship, not to sell. The thing you have to watch out for is control your image. How many people have seen the video of United Breaks Guitars? Okay? United Breaks Guitars. This poor guy, who happened to be a country singer, created a video because United literally broke his guitar. The bag handlers, and because they did not handle their image and just said, it's your problem, not mine, he wrote a video that went viral. That is not as important as this other guy over here, who was the owner of Taylor Guitars. He developed a video response, not to saying, well, this is, I agree how horrible United is, but talk about, if you're flying with a guitar, this is how you should pack it. He gave value, and he rode the coattails of the viral video of United Breaks Guitars. Are there any companies out there that have videos that you can do a video response to that will go and is viral with him? You need to control what people are saying about you. And the only way to do is to take the control over yourself. You want people to remind you that you are a sweet, loving little kid, that they would love to hire you instead of being someone that is an angry bird. Because whatever you say or do on a video chat can be shared through all the social media. And unfortunately, bad news is shared more often than good news. The reason why people don't do video or are afraid of video conferencing is because they're afraid of public speaking. And some of those that are not afraid of public speaking happen to also just be unaware of how horrible they actually are on camera. Now let's go through certain steps that are going to help you eliminate some of that fear. And that's through Google. Well, let's first go through Google Plus. I forgot to put this first. Google Plus is a social network. Think of it as LinkedIn meets Facebook. It is more of a business sharing of knowledge than it is of sharing of what you ate today. It is on a business level where people show what they know and show their passions. It has different parts. If you have a Gmail address, which I strongly recommend everybody get, you can set up a profile. You can define your places where you happen to be living, whether you're living in, that you're looking for areas in New York City. You want to make sure that you're local. That you put that you live in the New York City area. Because their search is many times done at the local level. The Plus, of course, is the social network, and the Hangouts is what is going to be your video chat. And it is competing with companies like Skype. Events we'll go through quickly as also. You set up your profile. This is my personal profile. I also have a business page off of it. Just like Facebook, you have a personal profile, and then you have a page. You have to have the personal profile first. You want to be very careful that you put in your about page nothing like you do in LinkedIn. You want to be humanized. Google Plus looks for humanization. It does not look so much for your skills, the how and the what. You can get that in, but just make sure you just are much more on a one-to-one. Think of it that you're not talking to the world. Think of it that you are talking to one person. The Hangouts allow 10 seats You take one of them, or you can take all of them. You can invite how many people you want. But if you're going to be doing something with an interviewer, you may only take up one seat, and they may have a whole audience there interviewing you. How many people have noticed that the interviews are not just with one person, but you're interviewing them with like 3 or 4 at the same time? That's why Google Plus is going to be actually very useful. You set it up. Hangouts on air are public. And what's important about the public is that it's saved to YouTube. So you can see how you acted on the interview afterwards. You get the option to set it up. You may want to set it as public. However, anybody can watch it. They may not have a seat at the table, but anybody can watch it. There are so many Hangouts going on that the chances of them finding you and watching you is probably pretty low. You don't have that kind of clout yet. You can create a special invite. And what's important about the invite is that it winds up on their Google Calendar. You can have, up here, they have animated images. None of them are that corporate, but you can upload your own, whether it's animated or still. That's a good way to remember. Have your picture in here. Have your profile picture. Something that says, that indicates that they are going to be speaking with you. You set a date, time, forget about the pay to participate. You're on an interview. You will see all the players down here. Now this is a Hangout I did just myself. So I just wanted to show you what it looked like. Here are certain apps. The one app that is the most important to you is the lower third. You watch the news, you see the lower third, they always talk about what's being shown right now. That's the NBC News, CNN, whatever the channels are. You can create your own so that your name is in front all the time. You can have it as the second beside your name, what you do. What is your differentiator? You can have that on the second one so that it is being implanted on their minds as you carry on the interview. Of course, you want to look your best. And I don't care. There was an incident when Google Plus Hangouts first started out. This marketing company wanted to talk to me. They sent me a text, said, "Can you talk?" And I said, "Oh, I'm not busy. I'm busy right now with another client for about 45 minutes. Fine, we'll meet in an hour." Hung up, ran upstairs, took my shower, put my makeup on, did my hair, because none of that was done. As when you work from home, there's so often that you're actually working in your underwear, as they say, vlogging in your underwear. Understand that when you're on a video chat, that conversations matter. You need to worry about who you're talking to. And keep in mind that law of diffusion, are you talking to laggers or are you talking to early adopters? Because you talk to them differently. Make sure how you look. They actually give you a chance to look at yourself and what you're going to look like on the video conference before you actually join. And it's not only your teeth, it's also your entire stage. If your PC is set up where it is pointing to your wall of all your outstanding bills, that will be shown. You do not want your bag of chips open. You want to make sure that it looks as professional, as clean as possible. Now you got the nervousness. And I'm so happy you put this chair up here. To explain, I don't know how many of you know, I have a pinched sciatic nerve, so that's why I'm not standing through this presentation. But it is a great example to show the most common mistake people make on video conferences. Women show their nerves by touching their hair. They're constantly going and they're constantly doing whatever. They're showing their nerves. Get rid of any change in your pockets. Men are genetically programmed to jingle their change in their pockets. You take it out. You make sure if you're in a swivel chair, you're not doing one of these all the time. And that's happening. You're not doing that thing. I don't care what you do. In fact, change your chair to something that cannot be swiveled. And get rid of all clicking pens. And make sure you don't do the tapping either. All those are signals that you are nervous. And all that is easily preventable, even if you are nervous. Just get rid of it. There we go. Make sure you dress right. Dressing on camera is different than dressing for business. You want to make sure that you dress in something that is not wrinkled. The lighting will show up the wrinkles more than anything, so that you look more disheveled than you do in a regular setup when you're standing or you're in person. Stay away from red and white. Those colors do not always translate well. And please, if you're going to be a mover, stay away from stripes. You'll make the other person dizzy. One of the most important things is that you want to look like you are paying attention. And you're going to be concentrating on what you see on your PC. Unfortunately, the camera is up higher. You want to look at the camera. And I always put a little sign here, which you can barely see, that says, look here. To remind myself. They don't see it. Which is also another good point about video conferencing. You can put little posters all over the place that reminds yourself, don't tap the pen. This is the point you want to make. This is how you want to open up your presentation. And of course, please smile. Branding. One of the things I actually forgot today was my own water bottle. I have theirs, but my water bottle has my company name on it. Now, how many of you actually are freelancers instead of looking for employment? Is there anyone that's... Order yourself a coffee mug, order yourself anything that has your brand on it that you can have on the video. You don't have to talk about it. You just have to occasionally just pick it up, take a drink, and right there it's your company name coming up and coming down. You can order one through companies like Cafe Press, and what I use is Zazzle. This here is the lower third, where I have my name and then the tagline. If you are an individual looking for employment, you still need a tagline. You want something that triggers the remembrance of you and to convey your value. Every second counts. You want to connect with the audience. A little trick I use is try to be very personable right in the beginning. Raise hands. How many of you have an animal that you live with? Not as many as I know. How many of you have ever had a dog in your life? That is probably the best topic because it just lowers the pressure. That when I walk into a room and I walk into strangers, instead of, oh, I do this, I do this, do you have a dog? No. Oh, do you? No, I have a parrot. Well, that opens up a whole different thing because then it's like, does she talk? Does she do this, do that? But at least I'm engaging. I'm showing that I'm personable. And it makes it just an even playing field because it's all of a sudden the stress level is gone. If you can, don't talk about yourself. Talk about yourself by asking powerful questions. I mentioned Jeffrey Gitomer before. Jeffrey Gitomer is someone that has a little book or a CD that's how to ask powerful questions. Because you want to ask questions that make them think of you, but get them talking. Because your goal is to find out what it is that you're going to be satisfied. What is the real pain? And that getting them to talk about themselves will prevent you from being boring. You want to educate, entertain, and empower. Remember the Willard Glenn? He was entertaining, he educated about his product, and he actually empowered everybody. That is done through contents, context, and structure. Content is what you offer them. Context is how it applies to them. Structure is probably what you're missing. Believability trumps credibility. You probably sit there many times lost option and say, I know more than that guy, because that guy connected on a human level first. People buy from those they like. Other ways of avoiding boredom and becoming believable is these common tips for speaking. You want vocal variety. The biggest mistake I see people on video chats or video resumes is they talk like in a monotone in the same size sentences, and they go on and on and on without giving ums, eems, and all, so there gets no little spaces. Pauses are very, very important. The brain can listen and think, but separately. You need to put appropriate pauses so they absorb what you say. You need to make sure that your sentences are of different lengths. Never come out of the presentation with, "Oh, I am the best person in the world," because then you have no place to go in your conversation. You can only go down. You start in the middle, then you can get excited, and then you can bring it down also. Facial expressions, especially on video, is extremely important. Smile, nod, show that you understand. The reason why we like movies is not only because of the audio, but it's also because what you see. The imagery is also important. Audio is extremely important. If you can, use a mic. You can get a cheap mic for like $50. That might be better than what's on your machine. Every machine has a mic outlet. You can get a little lavalier mic. I have a little stereo one. I think I paid like $40 for it. I'll use that instead of something like this to just make the audio that much better. The best thing to do is before your presentation is to go through these little exercises. This is what journalists do before they go on air. They get their vocal cords running. And you may have your coffee cup. Make sure it's warm water and lemon. Caffeine will actually constrict your voices, vocal cords. You want to talk with, of course, and not act. You want to try to be personal and try to do engagement. You're not giving a speech, you're having a conversation. And the best way to do that is to make sure you talk more about you. Not you, the other you. You want to talk about, get them to talk about the company. Well, your company, I noticed from LinkedIn, says this. From looking at your website, you do this. Are you having problems here? Is this where you're trying to grow? What are you doing about this? You want to talk about the you. Make sure you're mentioning you 5 times more than you're mentioning I. There's a great book, I brought it with me, it's called Business Model You. I'm not sure how many of you have actually used that book or seen that book, but it helps you define how you're different. Are there accountants in the room? Okay? What differentiates you from him and from him? I'm not asking, I'm asking rhetorically. How are people going to remember you and know that you are the person for them? You use that book to find out where you are different. Who's heard of Seth Godin? Okay, Seth Godin, if you're reading his blog, read it every single morning. In fact, this morning was very good for those looking for work. It was very, very powerful. He has a regular blog. What he has, his most famous book is Purple Cow. What is Godin? Yes. He opens up the book by talking about he's on a trip through France. And he's going through some countryside and you see a bunch of cows. Now you see some Holstein cows, you see the brown cows, you're not going to go and talk about it. If you see a purple cow now, you're going to tell someone who's going to tell someone who's going to tell someone. So the remarkability isn't as far as being the best, of course you are already. But it's what is it that's so different and so intriguing about you that people are going to want to talk about you. They're going to want to remark about you. Stay away from the jokes, stay away from sarcasm. If you want to go and just be friendly. People will connect better with friendly over funny. Unless you're a comedian going for a comedic job, go with friendly. I talked about the script. Your opening. How are you going to open up your interview? What questions are you going to ask that's going to start them thinking? What conversations? Are you going to go and say, look in the background and see a picture of their lab, their Labrador, and say, oh, I see you have this. How old? How old? Start a conversation on a friendly note that area. You also, you need to know how you want to close. What is that one purple cow moment that you want them to remember? Thank you. I really appreciate this time. I hope we continue this conversation and mention something that's related to why you are different. People want you to succeed on a speech. They want you to, in the video chat. They want you to. And think about all this human resources, how many resumes they're going through, how many people they're talking to. They are looking for the one person to say, thank goodness I don't have to talk to anybody else. Using these skills and being organized is going to help you end the search for them. In here, 50% of the conversation is going to be the 3 points that you want to make about yourself that's appropriate in context, not only content, but in context with the client, because every client knows that they're different. Simon Sinek has a great video out there that talks about the passion. People don't care. They're going to assume you know how to do your job. They're checking yes to find out what you know that is safe and sit with them. But what's really going to connect and what you need to start with first is the why, and that's your passion. As boring as maybe accounting is to everyone else, to you it is the greatest thing since sliced bread. There's one aspect and you have a story about that one aspect that you can share with the person on the other side. Facts and figures are forgotten. Stories are retold. Whatever you're passionate about, whatever are those 3 points, think ahead of a story you can share that will be applicable in context to the interview. What do you have in common? You already read their LinkedIn profile. You know who you're talking to. You already looked at their website. You also did searches to see what other people are saying about them. They're searching you. You search them. Then don't fall into the common trap of the curse of knowledge. And that's what it said. They're already assume you know how to do your job. They're already assuming you know what you talk about. When I started looking at IT, the jobs started going down and down and down. In the beginning, they just had everything on the kitchen sink. You needed to actually be able to design, to code, and do everything, including cleaning the windows and washing the bathrooms. Never on the resume was anything about communication skills. Then about 5 years later, or I should say 2 years later, you start seeing a one-liner all the way at the bottom. Very fine print. Must have good oral and written communication skills. The resume already is showing the written skills. Your video is going to show you your oral skills as well. Now, I've noticed, because I keep track looking at some of them, even though I plan never to go back there, it's all the way at the top, that the communication skills is extremely important. What I see on video resumes and when I'm on video conferencing is people are too busy showing off their knowledge. And you're boring people. There's a great book called The Art of Explanation. It's a company that develops little videos that are called explainer videos. They explain what they do. They did Dropbox, they did Twitter. And what they found their niche is because most people explain too high up. You, come on. Most people might be over here, you're explaining here. but your audience is down here, so you're losing them and they're feeling bored and they're never going to call you back. I'm not saying to dumb it down. I'm telling you to come up with some sort of story so you start here and you gradually move them up to where you're thinking. The person you're interviewing with is all the way up here on the scale. It doesn't matter. They're going to appreciate that you can communicate because they probably can't. So the fact that you're going here, and the thing is that if the knowledge may be the same, the perspective is not. So the fact that you start down here, even if the person is up here, you're getting them on the same page. And you're going to slowly grab them, bring them up. Take a look at the Dropbox video. Take a look at the Twitter video that they made, and you'll see what I mean. Especially you techies, you probably already know how to use all this, but you'll see that information.
Sorry, what's the name of that?
The book is The Art of Explanation. And if you look at, I think the name of the company that makes these videos, and you can go to their website too, Common Craft. And what's good is that if you have a specialty, why don't you create a video that's like an explainer video that explains in this kind of format, using the script structure. Because when people will search for you, that video will come up. And they're like, oh, this person really does have communication skills. Your goal is to make the interviewer comfortable with your knowledge, not to show it off. All this information is up to you. I'll tell you, we are in the early stages. We are definitely in the beginning of video chat. This is your opportunity to shine and be a differentiator. It's one of those purple spots on your body. Because if you don't, everyone else that's starting to do what you do is already doing it. Do a search. See if there's video resumes for some competition. Questions? Now, I know I went very fast here. Blame it on my pain meds. Yes, went all the way in the back.
You had mentioned before that people can make videos public. And it seems to me at some point it would be easy to make that searchable. So if there's an interview that you do that somebody decides to make it public, it would be easy for people to find it.
If you fill out all the pieces. Mm-hmm. Now you're talking YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube is the second largest search engine. But to be found, you have to change the names of things. Now what I usually do when I have these Hangouts, but that's because I do video for a living, I will download the file, fix it up, fix up the audio. I always actually take it separate audio. And then I sync it so it sounds better. But for those that are not video professional, have it go in there, make sure you fill in the description. Make sure you use keywords. Make sure you actually add on the location. All those are, every field that's inside of YouTube is searchable. And Google uses it to feed the spiders. You can, if you decide it's a horrible interview, make it unlisted right after that. If you're the one that started it. Now, if they did it, and they keep it public because they're not thinking, and you like the interview, have it embedded on your website. How many of you have your own personal website? Shame on you. Down, you can easily just list your name. I have a patferdinandi.com, a patriciaferdinandi.com, all linking to my own personal website. When I first got, when the internet first opened up and you had websites, my first website cost me about $15,000 to design and have made. This last one with Viditude cost me $250. You can easily download through Studio Press a basic template and you will look professional. The person in the green shirt is before you? Yes.
Yes. I was just wondering the name of that book again that you said that could help you figure out how to differentiate yourself?
Purple Cow by Seth Godin. Oh, this book is Business Model U. I have it up here. If you, I brought it with me. So if you want to take a peek.
Look.
Okay, there was a gentleman over here. No, yes.
This may not pertain to you, but this question, are you familiar with the LinkedIn pretty much so? There was a feature on LinkedIn that was box.net that you could put on videos of your own self. They seem to have moved it out, or
What you can do now, and this is where I think LinkedIn has fallen down considerably.
right.
You can load one video, but the other trick is to create a PowerPoint presentation and put it on SlideShare. And have a one page where it has your video embedded in it. And it will link it right there. If you go look at my profile, I believe I have some. They're actually old, those videos. Over here, yes.
Again, to follow up with that same question, you put when I put my business card, I say www.LinkedIn in Bill Dearborn.1, and on my business card, but you wanted to put in your own website. Did you say you had to do that, or you don't? Is it an option?
Well, there's two things you can do there. If you don't want to do your website, you only want to have a LinkedIn profile, buy the domain name, GoDaddy's cheap, and have a point right to your LinkedIn profile. So here it is, yourname.com, and it will literally go right to your LinkedIn page.
Oh, okay.
You can do that. I still recommend having your own website, where you can put your own thoughts, your own path, everything out there. I don't recommend that you go to Facebook. Facebook is an iffy issue.
Two-part question. I'm a note taker, so what is your suggestion about taking notes during the video interview?
I don't have a problem with you taking notes. You have to be careful of your keyboard if you're doing it by typing. If you use a Hangout, the Hangout has a spot for notes. There's one of the tools. I have not used it, but there are others that have. I would do it that way.
But you want to try to maintain eye contact, I would assume.
Yes, but I mean, I think the fact that you write down occasionally is okay because it shows interest. I don't have a problem with that.
And the second part of that is I'd like to be prepared. I have a list of questions and maybe some notes prepared. Would you actually show your reading, or would you hide that behind the camera and read from the notes?
I put it on Post-its. I would put it on Post-its and have it right there near there where you can have it. It's very interesting. How many people have heard of Alan Weiss? Alan Weiss is a speaker, and he does a lot on business strategy. He does constant videos, and they're not the best of videos. He just literally stands in front of his magnificent house to show you how successful he is, and talks. But the interesting part is you constantly see his eyes going like this, because he has these reminders. Never, 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 never memorize your speech. Memorize your opening and your closing, and remember the points you want to make. The chances of you becoming sing-songing or getting nervous and forgetting the next line and just being stuck with deer headlights in the headlights is a very high probability. Okay, there's a question over here I saw.
Yes, thank you. You started talking about the video resume, and then you have gone into the conferencing. So in the interview, what you were talking about is where a company solicits you to interview with them, but the video resume that you were talking about is where myself or anyone here records themselves on video and
It doesn't have to be yourself. The best video resume I saw was for someone that was going out for graphic design. And she had an animated video of 2 minutes just talking about what other people had said, basically talking about what she's done. Some of her work flew in, some of her work flew out as far as animation, that she didn't even put her own picture on until the end. You have so many options. When I was in IT and the job started, I was a consultant for many years, very successful, except that most of Wall Street stopped thinking past the first quarter. And the kind of work I usually do is 2 years, 3 years out. I saw it and I said, what do I want to do? Well, I'm already doing some professional speaking in the IT market. Why don't I go and enhance my skills? And then I started thinking, well, no one's going to hire me until they do a video. They see me on video, then they may hire me. And that's when I fell in love with it and made a drastic right turn. Since then, I have been so passionate about it because video has so many options and it's so easy to do now. You can have your iPhone, you can create your own broadcast. If you want to be helpful to somebody, show that you are a good communicator, create a series. The first example I did, since I had already been published by commercial publishers and also self-published, is to play with the video, is how to get published. It was 33 videos. I had the best time of my life doing that. If you have a passion, you can do it as well and create a lot of videos. And people will find them. All those could be your video resume. Take a piece of it. You have so many options, and all you need is something small. You want to go to the next level up? Yes, then you're going to hire someone that does this for a living. You're going to want to hire a coach that's going to tell you what to say. You're going to hire someone that's going to make basically like this one lawyer I worked on said, I know you have diabetes, but you're taking that bracelet off because you kept on going like this on the desk. And all you heard was that constant click. You learn how to do those kind of things. He also kept on saying, I, to the point where I actually had a big sign made that said, you, and put it behind the camera so you would remember it. That's when you hire someone that's professional, when you want to have something to do. Your video resume has to be less than 2 minutes. You imagine is that if you don't capture their attention within the first 10 seconds, you've lost them. You want them leaving wanting more. You want them to pick up that phone and call you and say, I'd like to bring you in and have another conversation. Any other questions? Yes?
What about age discrimination?
Well, that's interesting because my neighbor actually was talking about this. I think age discrimination happens that he's so afraid of it, he's so afraid of being discrimination, that he tells the headhunters, do not send me any resumes with physical images on them. He came right out and says, I don't want to take the risk. Video is all image. If you're smiling, you're friendly, you talk, you have a conversation, what you look like. Yes, there's going to be some that are going to definitely say you're overqualified, there's the line saying you're too old, you're going to go and do something else. But if you start connecting with them, because people want to buy from their friends, they want to buy from people they like, you have a better shot. Yes?
You started to say, you were talking about needing to know how to close, because that was only that last little 25%. And you said we needed to mention something about us that makes us special, something like from the Purple Cow train of thought. So you started the saying and you said, thank you, I hope we continue this conversation.
Because I don't know what your Purple Cow is.
Yeah. Well,
for me, basically when I talk to people about when I'm trying to close the sale, is that I had already listened to them. And I understand and say, look, you know, I hope some of these tips as far as helping you talk to the camera is very useful. There's tons of other ones that I have. Why don't we arrange a meeting and we'll talk about it? So I talked about them and basically tried to go and make the next appointment. The one thing about speeches is that most of them go in a circle. What you start with is the point is that, oh, I'm glad I wrote in, I said, I'm full of tips to make you comfortable on camera. At the end, it's like, if you'd like more tips, we can talk about this afterwards. I'll close it with that. And the points I make, or the 3 points, are tips that are either one that they already know, that's probably very common, because I want to start from there, and I progressively get a little more detail or more or rarer that's known. People are unaware of what they don't know. So that's why I always, just like that explanation slide, go and start from the very beginning. Start from somewhere I think they are laggers, so they know nothing about social media. And I'll work up from there. There was another question, I think, over here. Yes.
Care to add anything about gestures, hand gestures,
Move with purpose.
gesticulating? Good. Okay.
One of the things, if I'm usually standing, you'll see me maybe make 3 stops back and forth. And I use the movement to talk about either my past, I'll stand on one side, and if I want to talk about where I'm growing to or what I'm doing next, I'll go to the other side, because it physically separates. But on a video chat, you have that problem. You don't want the movement, of course, to be this. Okay? But you do occasionally want to show your hand. Unless you're really close, practice. You're better off probably using your facial expressions for movements than you are using your hands. Because your hands may come with many of these webcams that are on the PC. You wind up being where it's all hand. It's like some sort of science fiction. Google Hangout, not the Hangout on air. Just do the Hangout and play. But unless you're making a point, keep your hands down. But if you want to say, but, to kind of emphasize something, you can do that.
How do you establish yourself as an expert or an authority in what you're speaking about without taking up too much time, or or if you're not an expert, how do you create that illusion?
Believability trumps credibility. People buy from the emotion. People buy you. It's interesting. It's how many of you have ever been involved in buying expensive products for the computer, for the whatever. They'll go through all these basic gyrations of saying, well, this is my price, this is my this, trying to make it so it's totally unemotional. You've got a better salesperson who's a friendly salesperson, you're going to give them extra points. The subconscious always takes over. So make sure you're friendly. Make sure you're not talking over their head, that you carry them forward, and they're going to believe that you know what you know you're talking about. Now, can I be personable and say, what is your topic? What is your specialty?
Communications. Written, though, writing.
Right, written communications.
I mean, how do you prove that you know how to do something like that?
I think they are going to assume that you're going for the job, that you know the difference between the different theirs, which, by the way, was the title of my first video, was because I always mixed up the theirs, and I'm still a published author. They're going to assume you know what you know. They're going to ask the questions. You answer their questions. It really is your storytelling for communications, written communications. And that they will remember your stories, other than the fact on how you're going to word something to someone else. Anybody else? Yes?
What's the author of the book for the powerful questions to ask?
Jeffrey Gittimer. And I don't know if it's a book. I think he does it as a download. He did a podcast on it.
How do you spell his last name?
Gitomer. And that's probably the one thing that all of you could use a little extra work on, is learning sales and marketing. You are now the seller of you. Sign up for his Tuesday Sales Caffeine, it's called. If you go to Gittimer.com, he has a free e-zine that comes every Tuesday morning. Fabulous. I'll warn you now, when he starts his presentations, the first thing he says is, if you are sensitive at all, please lower your sensitivity meter. He is a Jersey Shore type guy and uses all the language, all the things, and that's basically his persona. But he knows his stuff. He has a great book on attitude. His book on sales is phenomenal. He has many, many videos on his channel. The other for marketing, Seth Godin. Read his blog every single morning. We'll give you food for thought and help you think. I want to ask you one thing. Through all this presentation, what's the one thing you're going to remember about me?
Aaron.
The sciatic, yeah, exactly. But the parrot is done on purpose. I belong to a private social network run by Seth Godin. And he had a special event where he invited certain people to a free dinner. I walked in there and there was about 30 people there. And across the other side of the room, I heard someone say, "Look, it's the parrot lady." Seth Godin got up from his seat, came over and said, "I got a story to tell you." What better branding is that? People smile when you think about parrots. What can you create that makes them think? I can't tell you how many times I get a phone call. I saw a parrot on TV, I saw an article about a parrot, and call me to talk to him. That's what you need.
But hang on though, if you're trying to create a business presence and people are yapping on about parrots, that's not your business. I mean, that's not your professional persona.
Well, you get to control the conversation too. Why can't you ask a question back that starts turning the conversation to the right way? That's number one. Number two, you're using it to build friendliness. You want to humanize it. LinkedIn is the dehumanizing social network of them all. It is horrible. The best thing you can do is to be a little different and to add something that's humanizing. There is somebody that actually does a hangout. He has his own channel now. That he lives on the Caribbean and he has a cooking show. He uses some of those 10 seats. He has a camera on him. He has an iPad on the stove. Not literally on the stove, but pointing at the stove. And he has one of his friends who lives on another island use her iPhone showing the different spices he's using. And he has this weekly, I'm going to make jerk chicken today. I'm going to make this. So he uses the seat. If you could go and create one of your channels, one of your seats, where it has some of your work. If you've written an article, you can have that in the background. Anything to help it so that you can use all the space available to you. And they will see it. If you have right there, they say, "Oh, you know, I'm talking about your resume." Oh, let me click on it because you already have it on your iPhone or whatever phone pointing to your resume. Then you can say, "Oh, well, where on the resume is it?" You can bring that in. Or you can use Google Docs. That's LinkedIn also. You can bring it in. You can talk together. Well, where are you talking about it on my resume? So, all these facilities are there for you. But if you have a no-find strategy, you're not going to be found. You have to be prepared. Think of all the opportunities you have. Any other questions? Okay, Scarlett and I can. Oh, say it, Jess.
Did you get your email this year?
I will be happy to email you anything I can, as long as I have your email address. Yes, but understand that someone says that you're over an hour down here, not getting paid. You do want to give them. I don't do free speeches. I do no fee. So please give me your email address, and I'd be happy to be in touch with you. Please circle me on Google+. I'm out there. You can see me as an example. I also have, if you go to my website, there's a one page you can download that's basic presentation tips. Some of them we talked about here, some of them we did not. So you may want to go and download that one pager and have for yourself to prepare for your video chat.
What is your website, your name on it?
Viditude, well, my name will go to viditude.com, so I have it set up that way. But it's VIDITUDE. I also have over there, I will be teaching how to use video to promote yourself at the Montclair Adult School. You're more than welcome to take a one-page sheet there. It also lists all different ideas for videos for yourself. Okay? Thank you. Thank you.